Title: She betrayed me while I was deployed, but I took down their whole scheme. Chapter 1. The Email. I was near Al-Hasaka, Syria when I got the email that ended my marriage. Subject line: Time to move forward. 11 years of marriage. Over. In an email. I'm Marcus, 38, Staff Sergeant with the 10th Mountain Division. I'd been deployed for just under 3 months when Elise decided she was done waiting. By the time I opened that message, she had already filed the divorce papers, emptied our joint account, and moved a man named Craig into our home in Watertown. Our home. I read the message twice, closed the laptop, stepped into the shower, and dressed for patrol. I didn't speak a word about it. Just slipped my gear on and went back to work like nothing happened. You don't fall apart over an email. Not out here. Out here you push forward. When I got back to my bunk that night, I typed a single word in reply. Understood. No arguments. No begging. No threats. Just acknowledgement. I guess that's what years in the military will do to a man. You learn to control what you can and survive the rest. Rodriguez, my bunkmate, glanced up from his cot. You good? Yeah, I said, just home stuff. He nodded and went back to his book. In this line of work, you learn to give space when someone's carrying fire in their chest. Truth is, I wasn't shocked. Things had shifted before I ever left. Elise stopped asking about my day. Stopped looking me in the eye. She began working late at the clinic, started yoga classes but never talked about them. She changed her phone password. Bought new clothes I never saw her wear around me. I didn't accuse her. That's not how I'm built. I watched. I prepared. I moved my grandfather's watch and my mother's silver into a safety deposit box. I opened a second account and diverted just a little of my paycheck each month. Not enough for her to notice, just enough that I wouldn't start from zero. The night I left, she hugged me at the airport. Stay safe, okay? She whispered. Her arms wrapped around me, but there was no warmth in her touch. It felt like she was saying goodbye to a stranger, not her husband. And I suppose in her mind she already had. We'd met back in 2012 at a friend's party. She was still in school then, training to be a dental hygienist. I was on leave. We clicked fast. Married 10 months later. She never really understood the army life. Her family had no military background, and she used to ask when I was going to get a real job, as if service didn't count. But I thought we had something real. We bought the house in 2016 using my VA loan. It was under my name, but I added her to the deed because that's what love meant to me: sharing, trusting, giving. After my parents passed, I used the inheritance to pay off our student loans. Elise got her new car. I reinvested in our home. And every time I returned from deployment, she felt a little more distant. I used to think it was just the time apart. I didn't realize it was something else entirely. In 2021, things got worse. She started dodging my calls during girls' nights. Talked more about her divorced friend Kayla, living her best life. Began saying we had nothing in common. I suggested counseling. She brushed it off. Just a phase, she said. But I could feel it, like a knife you don't see coming but your body braces anyway. Still I held on. Then came the missed calls, the cold goodnights, the new habits that didn't include me. I didn't ask. I just prepared. Like any mission, you don't rush in. You gather intel, wait for the right moment. Because I knew something was coming. I just didn't expect it to arrive in the middle of a hot meal, with a dull buzz from my phone and a message I'd never forget. Another withdrawal. $21,700. And that was when I realized, Elise hadn't just left me. She was clearing the battlefield behind her. Chapter 2. Quiet Fires. That night after patrol, I skipped dinner. I sat in my bunk with the glow of my phone lighting the space like a flare in the dark. I opened the banking app again. Joint account, $42.15. Savings, empty. $15,000 we'd built slowly, carefully, over years, gone. She didn't even wait. Elise had been moving the money in quiet increments, just small enough not to trigger alerts, until that last one. The $21,700 was the final sweep. Like wiping prints from a crime scene. I didn't react. I just watched the numbers fade and thought about the last time she said I love you. Couldn't even remember if it sounded real. Rodriguez passed by, carrying a tray from the mess hall. Want something? I shook my head. No appetite. He paused for a second. Didn't press. Didn't pity. Just nodded. Holler if you change your mind. I appreciated that. Some things don't need fixing. Just space. Later, when the room was quiet, I called the bank. I kept my voice calm, collected. They confirmed what I already suspected. Elise had been transferring money for weeks. Small withdrawals started just days after I deployed. then larger amounts. Clean. Consistent. Cold. She'd waited until I was thousands of miles away. Then she bled us dry. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat on my bunk watching the shadows shift on the concrete walls. Thinking. I wasn't heartbroken. I was insulted. I logged into our home security system. She must have forgotten I could still access it. The live feed from the front porch loaded first. There it was. A stranger's truck in the driveway. Next frame, some guy walking our dog. Using my old travel mug. Wearing my Bill sweatshirt. Inside, Elise was laughing. In the kitchen I remodeled myself after my second deployment. I'd picked the tiles with her. Repainted the cabinets during a long weekend. That kitchen was a piece of me. And she'd filled it with someone else. I wasn't angry. That would have been easier. This was something colder. Sharper. Like steel drawn slowly across bone. I opened a notebook. Started a list. Call Corey. Lawyer. Former Army. Trusted. Secure pension. Check refinance docs Elise mentioned last year. Request emergency leave. Freeze credit. No contact unless required. This wasn't about revenge. This was about containment. Control. Recovery. At 0500 the next morning, I sent Corey an encrypted message. Need legal help. Discreet. Urgent. His reply came within the hour. Call me. Secure line only. I stepped outside into the morning haze, boots crunching in the sand, the world still asleep. She thought I'd be stuck in Syria. She didn't know I'd been preparing for this the whole time. Chapter 3, Return Fire. 6 weeks after the email, I returned to Watertown. No notice. No message. No warning. Just a one-way ticket, a duffel bag, and a mission. I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into a roadside motel that smelled of mildew and old cigarettes. The heat barely worked, the mattress sank in the middle, but that didn't matter. I wasn't there for comfort. I was there to take back control. The next morning, I met Corey. He handed me a folder thick with printed emails, financial documents, and something that stopped me cold. A refinancing application, one I never signed. My name was there. So was my signature. But it wasn't mine. The middle initial was wrong. The curve of the letters didn't match. She had forged it. Elise had tried to pull nearly $90,000 in equity from the house using a loan tied solely to my VA benefits. And she had done it while I was deployed overseas. She listed Craig as her co-applicant. A man with a record, fraud in 2020, DUI in 2023. They weren't just reckless. They were calculated. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger was for amateurs. What I felt now was precision. A sharpened focus. I drove to the bank where the refinance had been processed. I presented my military ID, showed them my real signature, and laid down the forged one. The loan officer looked like someone had yanked the floor out from beneath him. There were no excuses. Only silence. From there, I went straight to the county clerk's office. I filed the necessary papers to block any change in property status without my direct, in-person authorization. Every legal path Elise had opened, I was now slamming shut behind her. That night a message came through. Elise was reaching out. She was nervous, but I had no interest in words anymore. Corey called with updates. The refinance was officially frozen. Then came the twist I hadn't seen coming. Craig had been arrested. Driving my truck. With a suspended license. The truck was impounded. And inside it, police found signed prescription pads. Stolen from the dental clinic where Elise worked. Not blanks. Signed. Prescriptions ready to be used or sold. This wasn't just betrayal. This was organized theft. Potential distribution. Maybe even medical fraud. I sat on the edge of the stiff motel bed, the lamp humming beside me, and stared at the closed door. They hadn't just tried to rob me. They had underestimated me. And now, without even knowing it, they'd declared war on the one person trained to finish what others were too weak to start. Chapter 4. The trap closes. The snow had turned to slush by the time I drove past my house again. The porch light was on. My dog Scout still there. Still waiting. I didn't stop. Not yet. I wasn't ready to look her in the eye. Not until everything was in place. Back at the motel, I reviewed every detail with Corey. Every signature, every transaction, every pattern. And that's when it started to come together, the scale of it all. This wasn't just one couple acting on impulse. This was a system. A process. Craig wasn't just a man who moved in with someone's wife. He was part of a larger play. The same name appeared on 3 previous property transfers. The same real estate agent involved each time. Same tactic, targeting military spouses while their partners were deployed, manipulating them, liquidating assets, vanishing with the money. Elise wasn't his first. She might not even be his last. I contacted the bank again, requesting a meeting with their internal investigator. I brought copies of my deployment orders, military ID, and the forged documents. I laid it all out, every account Elise had touched, every dollar that had vanished. The investigator listened quietly, taking notes with tired eyes and a trembling pen. He admitted it wasn't the first time he'd seen something like this. A deployed service member taken advantage of. A spouse claiming stress and loneliness. A stranger moving in. Money gone. Property flipped. Life stolen. But what made this different, what made this matter, was the evidence I had. Clear, organized, undeniable. I filed a formal fraud report that day. Not just against Elise but Craig. And the real estate agent who seemed to be quietly working in the shadows. That evening, a car pulled up outside the motel. Real estate logo on the side. I stayed behind the curtain and watched the man walk to my old front door. 10 minutes later, Craig stepped outside. They talked, then shook hands. I didn't need to hear them. I already knew what the conversation was. A listing. A cash offer. A quiet sale before I could make noise. But they didn't know I was already watching. Later that night, I logged into the home security system again. The cameras were still active. I watched as the real estate agent toured the house. Craig followed behind, pointing to details, things I had built, the floors I laid down, the railing I fixed, my work, my home. They were planning to sell it all. They talked numbers. $380,000 listing. Buyer ready at $330,000. Everyone wins. Except I was never supposed to hear any of it. But I had everything. The footage, the files, the timing. And when I forwarded that footage to the FBI contact Corey had spoken to weeks earlier, it finally tipped the scale. Half an hour later, marked black SUVs began circling the street near my house. What I had built out of silence, they were now ready to finish in full force. Chapter 5, Breaking Point. From the motel window, I watched the street come alive with flashing lights and unmarked vehicles. The quiet neighborhood I once called home now looked like a crime scene, and in many ways it was. Craig had just finished pointing out the back deck on camera when federal agents crossed the lawn. He barely had time to turn before they closed in. The real estate agent froze mid-conversation as agents surrounded them both. Within minutes they were in cuffs. And Elise? She pulled into the driveway moments later. She didn't even make it to the porch. She stood there, stunned, watching as the house emptied, not with moving boxes but with evidence bags. The FBI had been investigating this ring for months. My case, the forged documents, the transfer records, the security footage, it tied it all together. What had seemed like scattered incidents across 2 states now had a name. A pattern. A center. Elise was questioned on site. Her voice, muffled by distance and insulation, didn't carry through the glass. But I could read her body language from 100 feet away. First shock. Then defiance. Then collapse. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected me. Later that day, Agent Lewis called. They had enough to move forward. The evidence was clear. Craig and the agent had already started talking, trying to cut deals. There were at least 9 other military families targeted in similar ways. Some had lost everything. Their homes, their savings, their dignity. But not me. Elise claimed she didn't know. That Craig convinced her I was hiding money. That I was planning to leave her with nothing, so she had to act first. Maybe she believed that. Maybe she didn't. At that point it didn't matter. She had forged my name. That was fact. She had cleared our accounts. Another fact. And now, she stood on our lawn as agents carried out boxes of paperwork, hard drives, and evidence of a scheme she claimed not to understand. Corey met me at the county courthouse the next morning. Elise had agreed to sign a full confession to the forgery in exchange for avoiding criminal charges. She forfeited all claims to the house, the pension, and any joint accounts. The divorce would proceed clean. Final. It was done. No more arguments. No more questions. But the part one didn't expect, the part one hadn't prepared for, was the silence afterward. For months, every move had been about protecting myself. Recovering. Fighting back. Now the dust was settling, and all that remained was a hollow echo of a life that had once felt solid. I drove back to the house one last time. Walked through empty rooms. The kitchen where I'd once danced barefoot while she laughed. The bedroom we painted together on a rainy Sunday. Gone. Every memory stripped of its warmth. And yet, I didn't feel broken. I felt clean. As I stepped out onto the porch, Scout ran toward me. Tail wagging. Tongue out. He hadn't forgotten. And in that moment I realized something Elise never would. She had tried to erase me. But all she'd done was remind me who I really was. Chapter 6, just mine. The house sold 6 months later. I took the best offer, no negotiation. I didn't care about the price. I cared about leaving it behind. Too many ghosts lived in those walls. Too many rooms where I'd sat wondering who she was becoming while I was overseas defending the life we built together. I found a place outside Fort Drum. 2 bedrooms. 5 acres. A small lake out back that catches the early morning mist like a secret. The silence is thicker out here. Heavier. But it doesn't suffocate me, it steadies me. I don't need much anymore. Just peace. I took a training post with the 10th Mountain. It's not combat, but it's something better, building soldiers the right way. Teaching them to see the signs. To trust their instincts. To prepare always. On weekends I started woodworking. It began as a distraction. Cutting, sanding, shaping scrap into something useful. But like everything else in my life now, it became deliberate. Purposeful. Each piece I finish sits solid in my hands. Real. Mine. Scout runs the property like a king. He never strays far. He's older now, but he's still sharp. Loyal. Just like me. Sometimes I think of Elise. Not in anger, not even regret. Just like an old scar I forgot was there until it aches in the cold. Corey said she moved to Virginia. New job at another dental clinic. Maybe she's starting over. Maybe she hasn't changed at all. Either way, she's someone else's past now. One evening, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a neat script on a plain envelope. Inside was a note from a woman stationed at Fort Benning. Her husband had deployed a year ago. Craig and the same real estate agent had tried to do to her what they did to me. But because of the FBI case, they were already under watch. The attempt failed. Her family was safe. She ended the letter with a single line. You don't know me, but you saved my home. Thank you for fighting back when walking away would have been easier. I pinned it to the refrigerator. Some days, when the silence gets too loud or the memories claw their way up from underneath everything I've built, I read that letter. I remind myself that something good came from all this. Craig is serving 6 years. The agent got 8. And Elise? She walked away with nothing but the choices she made. I never pressed charges. I never needed to. The system worked, for once. As for me, I'm still here. Still standing. Still building. No noise. No drama. Just one quiet day at a time, laying down the pieces of a life that no one can steal, forge, or tear apart. A life that's finally, completely just mine.